Hey, everybody. So I've got to admit that I got kind of emotional on Friday night watching Marjorie Taylor Greene's resignation video. And I know that people have talked a lot about that announcement already, but I got emotional because of some very specific words that she said. So in a minute, I'm going to play three short clips of what I mean, because I haven't heard people emphasize her words in quite the way that I think we should. And the specific words that I'll play relate especially, I think, to people who came from the QAnon wing of the Republican Party. She's already distanced herself from the most extreme beliefs of that movement, but Friday night, she eviscerated a couple of really foundational beliefs that I think she had carried over from her QAnon days. And I know that many MAGA supporters still believe these very things because I hear from them every day. And I think she chose her words very intentionally, and she came right at some core MAGA assumptions about Donald Trump. And she came explicitly, I think, at two of the QAnon movement's main slogans. So the first one is, "Where we go one, we go all." And by her very act of defiance, and by saying that the Republican Party under Trump is no longer someone that she can go with, she's breaking this cult-like hold that Trump's movement has on a lot of people. And she even uses the word cult in the first clip that I'm going to play in a minute. But she also comes explicitly against another really important QAnon slogan in a later clip that I'm going to play. And that slogan is "Trust the plan." And I hear all the time from people who believe that Trump is playing four-dimensional chess, even when he's making decisions that obviously harm their interests. They believe that they have to trust the plan, and they believe that somehow Trump is taking down the global elites, despite all the evidence that he just is a global elite. Trump is robbing the nation blind, using the power of the presidency to enrich himself and to enrich the very people that his followers hoped that he had come to defeat. And here's where I think we've got to understand a very important fact about human nature. One of the hardest things for any of us to do is to admit when we've been fooled. And Trump has succeeded politically for so long now, I think, because too many of his supporters have just been unwilling to admit that they were taken in by someone so absurd as Donald Trump. I mean, that just feels bad when we trust somebody and we find out that they didn't deserve our trust. I think all of us would feel bad learning that about someone. So Trump supporters have played along with the absurdity, hoping, I think, that eventually their faith in him would pay off. And they keep following him through yet another looking glass or down another rabbit hole because at this point, it must feel almost insurmountable psychologically to just admit the truth. But the truth is this: they have allowed Donald Trump to toy with their mind and their will and their emotions for a decade now. And it's very hard, I think, to admit that he's done an extraordinary amount of damage to the country and he's hurt countless people, all in their name. And I'm telling you, Marjorie Taylor Greene's announcement was the first major step that I've seen toward those true believers in Trump beginning to walk away from him. And of course, I just have to say, Marjorie Taylor Greene still believes most of the worst things the MAGA movement stands for. But that's exactly what makes her comments so damaging to Trump and the GOP, because she officially no longer believes in Donald Trump. In a very big way that I think just hasn't been emphasized enough, Greene admitted that she was fooled by Trump. And as much as I'll probably oppose her core beliefs for as long as we both shall live, what she did on Friday night was an act of humility, because she did one of the hardest things a human being can do. She publicly admitted that she'd been fooled by a man who wasn't worthy of her trust. And in doing so, she began to build, I think, a permission structure for others to do the same thing. Someone has to go first. Someone has to say the emperor has no clothes. And when that someone is a person who speaks for millions of Trump's most loyal supporters, I think that's a big deal. And somebody like me and many people like me, we all left right off the bat, sort of the never Trump from the jump sort of people. And I was a Republican. I was an evangelical pastor for all of these years. But then in 2016, I saw Trump and I said no, and kind of hoped that would have an effect. But it turns out the people who really can have an effect are the people who are true believers in some of these things that I just find reprehensible. She said things in her resignation speech that caused me to just shudder, some of the positions that she still holds. But that is who can speak to Trump's followers. Her vision of America couldn't be more opposite from mine. I'm repelled especially by the fact that she links her Christian faith to her belief system. But again, that's what makes her statement against Trump so powerful. So she spent a lot of time in her speech laying out all the ways that she still believes all this America First stuff. And then she talked about how her own people are being lied to. And she went through a whole list of economic hardships that her people are experiencing. And she's just getting warmed up here. But this first statement is really an important one for laying the groundwork for what she's going to say next.
Many common Americans are no longer easily convinced by paid political propaganda spokespersons and consultants on TV and paid shills on social media obediently serving with cult-like conviction to force others to swallow the political party talking points.
So right there, good for her for using the word cult. I usually shy away from using that word because, unless I'm in a bad mood, because people tend to close their ears when I use that word. But of all the people in the world, I think she has the right to call it a cult because she's talking about her movement. And if you listen to her whole talk, she makes it clear that she was a true believer. And she says that Trump is casting her aside because of a few disagreements. She still believes all of this stuff, but she disagreed with him on a few things. And so she's been cast into the outer darkness. And she points out that while he's welcoming the establishment Republicans who hate him behind his back, he's casting out the true believers. So here's the second of the three clips, and the third one is where she really sticks in the knife. But this one, I think, is super important for understanding what she says at the end.
I have too much self-respect and dignity. I love my family way too much, and I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms, and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's all so absurd and completely unserious. I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better.
Now, I've got to say that line about having too much self-respect and dignity to go along with Trump and his people, that warmed my heart. I mean, I've made fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene's beliefs in the past. I have. And I will again if she steps back into the political ring and she tries to force her beliefs on America. But do you know what supposedly respectable Republicans like Marco Rubio have never been able to say? They've never been able to say, I have too much self-respect and dignity to go along with Trump anymore. Mike Johnson has no self-respect and dignity. None of them do. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, turns out she has something none of those supposedly respectable Republicans have. Not to mention the so-called Christian leaders like Franklin Graham. Can you imagine Robert Jeffress ever snapping out of his tantric reverie when he's around Trump to say, I have too much self-respect and dignity to follow this man? I mean, he would never say that. He could never say that. But she said more than that. She also basically admitted the Republicans are poised to lose the House in 2026, which right there is a shot at Trump's whole claim to be a winner. And she says, I don't want to spend the next few years defending a man who tried to defeat me in a primary after I was his most loyal supporter for years. And then she sums it up by saying, it's all so absurd and unserious. And when I say Trump's movement is absurd and unserious, his defenders will come on here and say that I'm being mean, but it just is absurd and unserious. And again, It's not Lindsey Graham, for instance, or any other Republican senator who's calling it what it is. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I think that proves her point, by the way. The reason those guys don't speak out against the absurdity and the unseriousness is because they have no fundamental beliefs. They're about power. They're about preserving their status and the elites. And they look at someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene as a useful idiot because she actually has beliefs that they can use to bring her onto the team. You know, she believed the hype. And so they welcomed her and millions of people like her into their movement because for a time it helped them to seal their grip on power. But she's not one of them, and she never will be. And I think she finally gets it. So she said, I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. And when I heard her say that, as much as I still disagree with everything that she stands for, when I heard her say that, that's when I started to get a little emotional because I can tell that statement came from her experience of knowing women like that. And she made the connection. She got it. She's understanding something that I've been trying to get across to Trump supporters for years. He doesn't respect you. He's using you. And you keep going along with it because you're hoping it'll get better, that eventually he's going to give you the life you wanted or the country you wanted. But Donald Trump is a sociopath, and it's never getting better. That's been the core of my message for years. And Marjorie Taylor Greene apparently got it. She discovered it on her own, by her own experience. And if she can discover it, if she can build a permission structure for others to admit the truth, then Trump's political career is done. And the only question is how much damage he'll do while he still has the power of the presidency. But Marjorie Taylor Greene's people aren't going to show up in 2026 to give Donald Trump a Congress that won't hold him accountable. If they listen to her message, they might never vote for a Democrat, but they're not going to show up to vote for Donald Trump or his enablers or anyone like him again. And that brings me to the most important part of her talk. Remember when I said that she intentionally came against one of her old QAnon slogans, trust the plan? Listen to how she ends her talk.
There is no plan to save the world or a 4D chess game being played.
I can't overstate the importance of those words to the QAnon wing of the party, whether they actually still believe in QAnon or not. They still believe in Trump. They still believe that they need to trust the plan. And now their most powerful spokesperson just told them there is no plan. There's only absurdity and unseriousness. There is no plan to save our country. And Donald Trump is not playing four-dimensional chess. He really is as unserious and absurd as he appears. And that's got to be kind of terrifying for somebody who supported him as faithfully as she has. And the fact that she had the humility to admit she'd been fooled, and the fact that she went public with it to create a permission structure for others to also see that and also to admit that just made me happy. It made me happy to see that. And it showed me that if Marjorie Taylor Greene can get it, then millions of other people can get it. And I'll happily argue with them about all the ways I think their agenda is horrible. But we can't even have those arguments until Trump's spell is broken, because his spell short circuits rational thought because of his emotional and manipulative appeals to, I think, the very worst in human nature. And Marjorie Taylor Greene took a big step toward breaking that spell on Friday night. And I'm looking forward to watching more of Trump's true believers follow her example, because I think that will be a good thing for them. And I know it'll be a good thing for the world. So thanks for listening.